Welcome to the second half of Chapter 9. We pick up the story on page 150. Esperanza waited, nervously pacing the room and worrying about the others. The school bus came first. Isabel burst into the cabin crying, "Mi gata, chiquita!" Esperanza hugged her. "She is fine, but very dirty and hiding under the bed. Are you all right?" "Yes," said Isabel. "We got to sit in the cafeteria all afternoon and play games with erasers on our heads. But I was worried about Chiquita." The door opened again, and Mama walked into the cabin, her skin covered with an eerie brown chalkiness, and her hair dusted like the cat's fur. "Oh, Mama!" "I am fine, mija," she said, coughing. Hortensia and Josefina followed, and Isabel put her hands on her cheeks in worried surprise. You look like raccoons," she said. All of their faces had circles of pink around their eyes, where they had squinted against the dust. "The trucks could not find their way to the shed, so all we could do was sit and wait," said Hortensia. "We hid behind some crates and buried our heads, but it did not help much." Josefina took the babies next door, and Mama and Hortensia began washing their arms in the sink, making muddy water. Mama continued to cough. "What about Alfonso and Juan and Miguel?" asked Esperanza. "If the trucks could not get to us, they could not get to the fields. We'll have to wait," said Hortensia, exchanging a worried look with Mama. A few hours later, Juan, Alfonso, and Miguel arrived, their clothes stiff and brown, all of them coughing and clearing their throats every few minutes. Their faces were so encrusted with dry dirt that they reminded Esperanza of cracked pottery. They took turns rinsing in the sink, the pile of brown clothes growing in the basket. When Esperanza looked outside, she could almost see the trees, but the dust was still thick in the air. Mama had a coughing spasm, and Hortensia tried to settle her with a glass of water. When the adults all finally sat down at the table, Esperanza asked, "What happened with the strike?" "There was no strike," said Alfonso. "We heard that they were all ready, and that there were hundreds of them. They had their signs. But the storm hit. The cotton is next to the ground, and the fields are now buried in dirt and cannot be picked. Tomorrow they will have no jobs because of an act of God." "What will we do tomorrow?" asked Esperanza. "The grapes are higher off the ground," said Alfonso. "The trunks of the vines are covered, but the fruit was not affected. The grapes are ready and cannot wait. So mañana we will go back to work." The next morning the sky was blue and calm, and the dust had left the air. It had settled on the world, covering everything like a suede blanket. Everyone who lived at the camp shook out the powdery soil, went back to work, and came home again as if nothing had happened. In a week they had finished cutting the grapes. Then, while they finished packing the grapes, they were already talking about preparing for potatoes. The camp routine repeated itself, like the regimented rows in the fields. Very little seemed to change, thought Esperanza, except the needs of the earth. And Mama. Mama had changed, because after the storm she never stopped coughing. "Mama, you're so pale," said Esperanza. Mama carefully walked into the cabin, as if she were trying to keep her balance, and slumped into a chair in the kitchen. Hortensia was bustling behind her. "I'm going to make her chicken soup with lots of garlic. She had to sit down at work today because she felt faint, but it is no wonder, because she's not eating. Look at her. She has lost weight. She has not been herself since that storm. And that was a month ago. I think she should go to the doctor." "Mama, listen to her," pleaded Esperanza. Mama looked at her weakly. "I'm fine. Just tired. I'm not used to the work. And I've told you, doctors are very expensive." "Irene and Melina are coming over after dinner to crochet," said Esperanza. She thought that would cheer Mama. "You sit with them," said Mama. "I'm going to lie down until the soup is ready because I have a headache. Then after dinner I'll go straight to bed and get a good rest. I'll be fine." She coughed, got up, and slowly walked from the room. Hortensia looked at Esperanza, shaking her head. A few hours later, Esperanza stood over Mama. "Your soup is ready, Mama." But she didn't move. "Mama, dinner," said Esperanza, reaching for her arm and gently shaking her. Mama's arm was burning, her cheeks were flush red, and she wasn't waking. Esperanza felt panic squeezing her, and she screamed, "Hortensia!" The doctor came. He was American, light and blonde, but he spoke perfect Spanish. "He looks very young to be a doctor," said Hortensia. "He has come up to the camp before, and people trust him," said Irene. "And there are not many doctors who will come out here." Alfonso, Juan, and Miguel sat on the front steps, waiting. Isabel sat on the mattress, her eyes worried. Esperanza could not sit still. She paced near the bedroom door, trying to hear what was going on inside. When the doctor finally came out, he looked grim. He walked over to the table where all the women sat. Esperanza followed him. The doctor signaled for the men and waited until everyone was inside. "She has valley fever." "What does that mean?" asked Esperanza. "It's a disease of the lungs that is caused by dust spores. Sometimes when people move to this area and aren't used to the air here, the dust spores get into their lungs and cause an infection." "But we were all in the dust storm," said Alfonso. "When you live in this valley, everyone inhales the dust spores at one time or another. Most of the time, the body can overcome the infection. Some people will have no symptoms at all. Some will feel like they have the flu for a few days, and others, for whatever reason, cannot fight the infection and get very sick." "How sick?" asked Hortensia. Esperanza sat down. "She may have a fever on and off for weeks, but you must try to keep it down. She will cough and have headaches and joint aches. She might get a rash." "Can we catch it from her? The babies?" asked Josefina. "No," said the doctor, "it isn't contagious. And the babies and young children have probably had a mild form of it already, without you even knowing. Once the body fights off the infection, it doesn't get it again. For those who live here most of their lives, they are naturally immunized. It is hardest on adults who move here and are not accustomed to the agricultural dust." "How long until she's well?" asked Esperanza. The doctor's face looked tired. He ran his hand through his short, blonde hair. "There are some medicines she can take, but even then, if she survives, it might take 6 months for her to get her full strength back." Esperanza felt Alfonso behind her, putting his hands on her shoulders. She felt the blood drain from her face. She wanted to tell the doctor that she could not lose Mama too, that she had already lost Papa, and that Abuelita was too far away. Her voice strangled with fear. All she could do was whisper the doctor's uncertain words, "If she survives." This concludes Part 2 of Chapter 9. Remember, you can listen to an explanation of our Mid-Unit 2 Assessment Study Guide by typing in BPIS Esperanza Study Guide into the search engine of YouTube, and that will bring you to another file. Thank you for listening.